Silence, everyone.
Silence, please.
Our guests are here.
Success is not the key to happiness, but happiness is the real key to success.
All of us do not have equal talent, but all of us have equal opportunity to develop our talents.
Alright, Namaste Adab, and a very good morning everyone present here. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of NB Navle Sinhgad College of Engineering, Solapur, I and we, your hosts this morning, I Piyusha Dikshit
And I, Shreya Utpat, extend a warm and a hearty welcome to each one of you gathered here in the inauguration ceremony of National Conference on Communication, Computation and Cybersecurity.
The events like this bring together amazing, magnificent, intelligent, radiant, talented, exuberant, sensational, and special researchers like you.
First of all, let me welcome the foremost and crucial people for this event. I welcome the chief guest for today, the galaxy of intellect, Sri Achyut Godbole sir. I welcome the guest of honor and the vision of empowerment, Sri Atul Kahate sir. Sri Atul Kahate sir, our honorable campus director and joint secretary of SPSPM, Sri Sanjay Navle sir. Our respected principal, NBNS COE Solapur, Dr. Shankar Navle Patil sir.
Honorable Director CRTD Professor S.H. Pawar sir, Head of Computer Science Department Professor A.A. Phatak sir, and Head of ENTC Department Professor S.S. Shirgan sir. A big round of applause for our dignitaries. Thank you. I request Professor A.A. Phatak sir to elaborate the idea behind the event of National Conference on Computation, Communication and Cybersecurity.
Okay, good morning to all. Respected dignitaries on the dais, Honorable Chief Guest Achyut Godbole sir, the guest of honor Atul Kahate sir, our source of inspiration, our campus director and joint secretary of SPSPM, Sanjay Navle sir, the director of CRTD Dr. S.H. Pawar sir, our beloved principal S.D. Navle sir, the deans, HODs, and participant and the student. It gives me immense pleasure to organize this national level conference, and this conference has organized by considering the multidisciplinary importance of multidisciplinary field. So it is organized by the ENTC department and Computer Science and Engineering department, and the name of conference or the topic of conference is Communication, Competition and the Cyber Security. The objective of this particular conference is, we know that the communication industry as well as the computer industry has grown at a very higher level, but all these industries nowadays are more conscious about the security. There is today's era that all this industry, communication and computer industry, must using or must know the different mechanisms of the security mechanisms, and this is applied to each and every level of the security, starting
Education and Information Technology. This is given every year for some significant contribution to multiple fields to not only about 7 to 8 along amongst 10 of the thousands who have passed out in IITs in the past decades. He has awarded Udyog Ratna by Indian Economic Council for his contribution to the information technology industry. He has awarded twice by the Prime Minister for excellent performance of his company in software exports. He has been awarded Kumar Gandharva Award by Pandit Bhimsen Joshi for his contribution to music and computers. His book Nagdved, Kimayagar and Arthat have received many awards, including the ones given by the Maharashtra state. He has received Indradhanu Award by exemplary contribution in many fields. He has travelled all over the globe more than 150 times for the business of information technology, addressing various seminars or negotiating large contracts. He has contributed in building Ashiana, a school for mentally challenged children with about 40 autistic children at Andheri, Mumbai since September 1999. He plans to expand the school to a strength of at least 100 and start many such schools in all the districts of Maharashtra. He worked with Bhil Adivasis at Sahadar Taluka, Dhulai district, Maharashtra in the year 1972 and 73 for their social upliftment and for the fight against their oppression. He is the president of Maharashtra Literature Council's first Yuva Sahitya Natya Sammelan. This was just a glance into his achievements. The actual achievement list may not end so easy. So I request our campus director Shri Sanjay Navle sir to felicitate our today's chief guest Shri Achyut Godbole sir. We have a student from second year civil department who has portrayed a still of Shri Achyut Godbole sir. I call upon Master Achyut Chandan Shive to hand over the portrait. We have another influential person of this 21st century, जिन्होंने कई इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट मैचेस में क्रिकेटर्स के चौकों और छक्कों के स्टैटिस्टिक्स और स्कोर संभाले हैं और हमारी नेटवर्क की सिक्योरिटी भी संभाली है. द वन एंड ओनली श्री अतुल कहाते सर. The detailed introduction of Shri Atul Kahate sir will be given right before his keynote speech.
I request Director CRTD, Professor Dr. S.H. Pawar sir, to felicitate our today's guest of honor, Shri Atul Kahate sir. Thank you, sir.
Now I request our principal, Dr. Shankar Navle Patil sir, to felicitate our campus director, Shri Sanjay Navle sir.
Thank you, sir. I also request Principal Dr. Shankar Navle Patil sir to felicitate Director CRTD, Professor Dr. S.H. Pawar sir. Thank you, sir. I request all the dignitaries to publish souvenir of this national conference. Achyut Godbole sir's sister. Thank you, dignitaries.
आपण खरंच किती नशीबवान आहोत की हे सोलापूरचे सुपुत्र आपल्या कर्तृत्वांनी अख्ख्या जगात आपले नाव नक्षत्रांमध्ये कोरलेले दिग्गज आज आपल्या इथे आपल्याला ज्ञान देण्यास
Time to listen to our principal, sir. I request our principal, Dr. Shankar Navle Patil, sir, to please address the participants.
Hello. Hello. Good morning to all of you. A well-known personality all around the world, Sri Achyut Godbole sir, who is basically from Solapur. We are very fortunate to have him as the chief guest for the inaugural function of this 2 days national conference. I would like to thank you, sir, on behalf of Sinhgad Institute's Solapur campus. We have one more very talented personality who also has his footprint in the IT industry of India, Sri Atul Kahate sir. He also is from Solapur again. I would like to welcome Atul Kahate sir on behalf of Sinhgad Institute Solapur. Our own campus director and the joint secretary of SPSPM, Sri Sanjay Navle sir, the director for Center for Research and Technology Development of Sinhgad Institute's Solapur campus, Dr. S.H. Pawar sir, head of the Department of Computer Engineering, Professor Phatak sir, head of the Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, Professor Shirgan sir, the coordinators for these 2 days national conference, Professor Jamgekar sir and Professor Snehal Tapkire madam, all head of the departments, deans of our college, all the staff members and the participants and all my dear students. We are very happy to inaugurate this 2 days national conference. As we know that the 15 days back only we had a multi-mega event in our college. That event was organized in collaboration with BARC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center. We had that time also eminent personalities with us. Dr. Anil Kakodkar sir was himself with us for full day, and we could listen to him, we could interact with him. It was again a great event for all of us. It was 4 days event. After that, this event we are organizing. This event is organized in collaboration with Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering Department and Computer Science Engineering Department. This event is supported and sponsored by Solapur University Solapur, and even it is approved by IST, Indian Society for Technical Education, New Delhi. The theme of the conference is the communication, computation and the cyber security. As we all know, nowadays we all became techno savvy, and because of the techno savvy, because of the social media, because of all the advanced technologies, we are getting connected very soon with any part of the world, with anyone whoever would like to get connected, and that has become possible because of the advancement in the technologies. But when we are talking about the technology, because of the technology, there are so many threats have been generated. There are so many what we can say the opportunities for the researchers which also have been generated. If we are saying that it's a threat, at the same time, being researcher, we consider it as a challenge, it is an opportunity for all of us. And that's why our both department have decided to organize the national conference on the advancements in the communication. And when we are talking in the communication, it's not only the communication. We know nowadays when we are talking when we are typing something on by using our WhatsApp or social media, any kind of thing, we have a smartphones with us, and when we are typing, we are just starting writing any of the word, we get to know that what will be the spelling of the interspelling of the next word which maybe you are thinking to write. And it is possible because of there are so many algorithms. This kind of algorithms have been designed, and these algorithms are helping us, and they are making our life very easy, very comfortable. Although it has some disadvantages, even most of us are forgetting the spellings of writing any of the word. We are forgetting the spelling of writing any of the word. But okay, it's okay. But at the same time, being researcher, being technical people will always think that what are the challenges, what are the opportunities for me for doing any research in the particular area. When I'm talking about the communication, we know it was a wired communication area, then it has been replaced with the wireless communication area, and now it has changed with the another era where we are only talking in terms of data. We are not talking in terms of even the wireless communication, in terms of when we have studied as a telecommunication student, we have studied only in terms of voice signal. Now we are talking in terms of data. And when we are talking in terms of data, of course, when we are converting any information in terms of bits, ones and zeros, it is being stored somewhere, and which has again created new threat, which is known as there are threats because our personal information is getting shared anywhere. Anybody can diagnosis, or anybody can analysis what exactly we are doing by using this kind of media. Now when we are doing this kind of things, this is being analyzed. Now it has also created some threat, but the people like us are thinking about how to provide the security for it, and that is what the point we are talking as the cyber security. As we are using so many devices, the cyber security has also given a very good advancements in the particular technological era. And within this theme only, our both the departments have organized this conference. I am very sure that whatever paper have been received, of course they have been peer reviewed, and after reviewing only they have selected certain papers, and all those papers will be presented here in this conference for today and tomorrow. We have even got the examiners who are again well known in their area, and they will be coming, and they will be examining, or they will be supervising, or they will be basically evaluating what kind of papers, and out of that will be definitely giving the best paper award even. The organizers are since last 3 to 4 months, I am seeing that they are trying to plan to have this conference. And as I said, it has been already being sponsored by Solapur University. So we had certain limitations, we had certain guidelines from the Solapur University, and within that frame only we are supposed to organize this conference. Our organizers have taken the pain to organize this conference. They have announced this conference, and I'm very happy to announce here that we have got the response from all over the India, different part of the India, from the different states. We have got the papers, and these papers will be discussed here. And this is how all the people, even those who will be attending, also will be getting benefited, because we will be coming to know what are the different dimensions in this era, or in this area where actually we can do certain research. Anybody, if they would like to do the research in that particular area, you will get the guidance from these researchers who have already done something, and they will be talking about their papers. Of course, it may not be a very international platform, but I am very sure that though we have provided this kind of platform, this is for the first time we are organizing any kind of conference in our college. We have organized other workshop, STTPs, even we have organized the multi-mega event in collaboration with BRC. It was also a very successful event. I am very sure this conference also will be a very successful event. I would like to give all the best to organizers as well as the participants, and I am very sure this 2 days conference will give the truthful output out of this conference. Again, I would like to thank today's chief guest and guest of honor for giving their time to us, and with our request, they have spared their time. They came to Solapur again. Basically, they are from Solapur. They could manage to come to Solapur, and they have accepted our invitation. I would like to thank from bottom of my heart. And with these words, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the chance to speak in this conference for the inaugural function. Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, the most awaited moment is here. So, are you excited to hear what Achyut Godbole sir has brought all the way for us? Can't hear you. Yes. Well, I request Shri Achyut Godbole sir to please come forward and enlighten our minds with his words.
Distinguished dais, am I audible? Yes. And friends, I the topic that I'm going to speak to you about is information technology yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I think it's a very important subject because I think if we want to understand where we are today in terms of information technology, we need to understand how we came to this position. I'm sure that many of you must be aspiring to take up new, very, very good jobs, maybe go abroad, learn, come back, work. And I'm sure that relatives of most of you, or many of you, must be working somewhere in large multinationals, or maybe abroad. Somebody's niece, somebody's nephew, somebody's uncle. How did this happen? How did we get to this point? I mean, many people call this as an IT revolution in India. I don't call India as an IT superpower, and there are reasons why I don't, and I'll probably talk about this a little later. But how do we achieve this status of, if not IT superpower, at least some kind of IT power? How do we achieve this? I think it's very important that we talk about the history of how we got here in order to understand what is in store for us in future. I normally, when I discuss this subject, I talk about the history of the universe. And you might wonder why I'm doing so, but you'll quickly realize why I'm talking about the history of the universe. The universe was created 14 billion years ago. The earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. And earth was, the first living being was created 3.75 billion years ago. The latest research shows that the first living being came into existence 4 billion years ago. And then there was evolution, and then the human beings came into existence around 100,000 years ago. The history of mankind can be divided in 3 parts, as Alvin Toffler says: agriculture, industry, and services. Agriculture spanned for tens of thousands of years, but there was no technology, and therefore there was no progress. And there was no change in the way we lived. We lived in the same way that we lived yesterday. We lived in the same way tomorrow, day after. We lived in the same way that we lived last week, last month, last year, decade, century, and so on and so forth. So tens of thousands of years, there was no change in the way we lived because there was hardly any technology. And then came Industrial Revolution. And only in a few centuries, the progress that we made, the technological progress that we made, was far, far higher than the progress that we made in tens of thousands of years of agriculture. Only in a few centuries. And then came the era of services, modern services. Modern services started with the advent of, or emergence of modern computers, which is 1960 onwards. And therefore, the services era, which spanned for a few decades, the progress that we made in the services era was much higher than the progress that we made in many centuries of industries, which in turn was much higher than the progress that we made in tens of thousands of years of agriculture. So we're talking about, all of you have done mathematics, we're talking about d2i by dx2, we're not talking about dy by dx. The rate of change is so tremendously high. In IIT, we had a rack full of books on our ground floor in our library of futurism, what's likely to happen in future. Today, there are very few people who can actually, can talk about what's likely to happen in future. The reason is that it's very difficult to predict. I'll give you some hints. In the progress that we've made in the last 10 years, was much higher than the progress that we made in the entire history of mankind. That doesn't mean we've become wiser suddenly. That doesn't mean we've become more intelligent suddenly. It's because, as Newton has said, we're actually standing on the shoulders of our predecessors. Right? I mean, we're building on whatever they had done for centuries, for decades and centuries. Okay, so it's not that we've become more intelligent or wiser, but the fact that we are standing on the shoulders of others, and therefore the progress that we've made in the last 10 years is much higher, much more than the progress that we've made in the entire history of mankind. So it's very hard to predict what's likely to happen. I'll give you a couple of examples. For instance, when I used to talk about futurism, what's likely to happen in future, 15 years back or 10 years back, I used to talk about flying cars, and people sort of looked at me with disbelief. I mean, how can a car fly? Imagine, because how can a car have a runaway, you know? Imagine the cars having a sort of takeoff from sort of Navi Pet, you know? How difficult it will be. But then if a helicopter can fly from where it is, then why can't cars fly? Helicopter doesn't need a runaway. I have 6 books on flying cars. And in 3-4 years ago, in New York, the flying car has been unveiled. The price is around 3-4 crores. That's another story. So nobody can afford it yet. But I think if you look at the history of technology, earlier, from the time that technology evolved and the time that it was accepted, it became socially accepted, economically viable, and commonplace, and became sort of known to people, it used to take several decades. To give you an example, the video phone, where you can speak to somebody while talking. The idea or even prototype was in 1968 in AT&T, and is now being used now, Skype and many other things that you can actually speak to somebody while talking. It took several decades. That time is now shrinking enormously. So, the flying car, for instance, I mean, the research has been going on for decades, but then it exists. There are several things that I used to talk about which now exist, and therefore the things that people used to think as science fiction have become science reality, and I think that's where the entire progress is taking place. I'll talk about what's likely to happen in future towards the end, and then I'll talk about how should we cope with this changing reality to succeed in tomorrow's world, and I'll end my talk. But I think let's talk about the history of how we got here. If we divide the services era of 5 decades, you can see 1960s was an era of mainframes, 1970s was mini computers, 80s was personal computers, 90s was internet, and 2000 onwards mobile computing and so on and so forth. Broadly. 1960s, the mainframes were very large, very big. They used to occupy a room half as size as this room, for instance, sometimes even the size as big as this. They had to air condition, unlike the PCs can sort of be on any desk without any AC. But mainframes had to be put in an air conditioned room. There were flickering lights. People used to run around with punch cards, and there was only batch processing. Mainly, there were some elements of online processing which IBM had started with CICS and stuff, but I think mainly it was batch processing. You all know batch processing, lights and people with punch cards moving from one end to the other. They didn't know what was happening. The ordinary users were afraid of entering the computer room. There were only 2 places that they used to remove chappals. One is computer room and another is temple. Because they did not know what was happening inside and how decisions were taken. It's much better to remove the chappals and enter. But computers used to emit heat. I remember there was a semi-humorous reality or joke. In Philadelphia once it was snowing. It was very cold and the company had bought computers. In those days, companies used to buy computers because of prestige. General Motors has a computer, so Chrysler has a computer. Chrysler has a computer, so Ford has a computer. So they used to boast that they have a computer, but they didn't use it very properly. So one company had kept the computer on the 2nd floor somewhere in attic, and it was very cold. And they didn't know what to do. So but they knew that computers emit heat, So somebody said, why don't you just start the computer? So that's the only use that they found the computer. That was the case. In fact, in those days, the head of IBM was asked how many computers will be needed to run the entire world, so to say, the business world or scientific world. How many computers will be needed in the whole world? And he had said 4. Can you believe he said 4 computers will be needed to run all businesses, all scientific research and so on. 4 computers. He would faint had he been alive today. Then came the era of mini computers. The prices fell, the sizes fell, according to Moore's law. Every 18 months, the power doubles. And there are reasons because so many more transistors can be packed in so less space. So mini computers came, but there were various categories of mini computers. There was Wang and Prime and Data General, DEC and so on and so forth. They all had their own proprietary operating systems and networking protocols and so on. So you had to come up with a language and a protocol which could talk to each other. And that's how the networking revolution started. Even then, the databases emerged in that era. Online processing had started, but even then, the prices were high. It had not reached the common user. People still feared the computers. And then came the era of 1980s. I'll stay on this decade a little longer, maybe 7-8 minutes, and there are reasons for this, because I think why we are sitting here today, why there are hundreds or thousands of people in America today doing information technology is because what happened in the decade of 1980s. What happened in 1980s? In 1980s, personal computers came into existence. That was the biggest event that happened. PCs were small. They could be on any desk of any user at homes, with lawyers and doctors and engineers and professors in schools and colleges and offices. They had multimedia. You know what multimedia is? Multimedia is we all have been communicating with each other using 4 media from age-old times. One is text. When you depress a key A to Z, it's converted into zeros and ones and stored on the disk. Another is still photograph. When you take a picture with a digital camera or mobile phone, it's converted into zeros and ones and stored onto the disk. Third is sound. When you play a CD has the sound in zeros and ones. Fourth is moving pictures, cinema, that is DVD. When you play DVD also, it's converted into zeros and ones. There are algorithms to convert analog to digital and so on. But I think when all these 4 media can be converted into zeros and ones, can be stored onto the disk, and they can be printed, it could be deleted, could be transmitted, could be modified, unfortunately for wrong reasons, but could be, and that's what is called as multimedia. The transfer rates are different and other things are different, therefore you need different operating systems, therefore multimedia operating system came into existence. But PCs had multimedia. PCs had colors, which are almost non-existent up to now. PCs had GUI, graphical user interface, that keyboard and mouse. And therefore, people who were using PCs started realizing that finally a machine has arrived which they can feel comfortable with, they can use, they need not be afraid of. And that gave rise to enormous amount of imagination in applications, in areas that they had not thought about hitherto. I mean, the applications actually invaded just about every area. Maybe education, be it production and manufacturing, to design, to architecture, to retail, to hospitals, to entertainment, to just about every area. Initially they started producing applications and then they became commonplace and accepted to such an extent that finally information technology made a very bold statement. See, in mainframe era in which I have worked actually, when I was in IBM, we used to go to the users and or our customers and beg for work for them. We used to tell the users, please let us design and produce some applications. And the users used to look down upon us because the reports were not very useful and it was expensive also. So we had to literally beg. And what was our USP? Why should they give work to us? We used to tell them we can produce everything that you do manually. We can reproduce on the computer exactly what you do manually. So the entire objective was to reproduce what they do manually on the computer, but faster. So the objective was just to reproduce what you do manually. Here came in 1980s, for the first time, information technology told businesses that I will no longer beg for work, you will beg to me in such a fashion that if you don't use information technology, your business will collapse. You will not stand in competition. Information technology will become central to your business. You will be thrown out of competition if you don't use information technology. That's the bold statement, because I will not imitate you, I will not just sort of mimic you, do exactly what you do manually and reproduce what you do manually on computer. I will not do that any longer. I will show you how you do your business differently or more efficiently. That's the bold statement that information technology made in 1980s. Why? Because in 1980s there was another movement, management movement that had started accompanying the growth of personal computers and information technology. That movement in management, for those who have done MBA will probably realize, is called as business process re-engineering. Business process re-engineering is any process that you take, say purchasing or payroll. How do you do payroll? You find out every employee's how many days he or she has worked, find out the basic pay, multiply by that, then find out, then add HRA, add whatever, then have deductions, PF, etc., and find out what is the net pay, and then write that pay on the check and then issue the check. So there are 7-8 steps, right? Each step can be divided in sub-steps and will have calculations. This process this is what is called a process. Earlier, improvement of the process used to involve different kinds of forms, colors, or routing of the forms throughout the organization. Maybe change that routing, change the routes in which the organization, the forms travel. BPR said that I will not improve your process by 5-10%. Incrementally, I will not change the process incrementally. I will revolutionize your process. Throw the old process in the dustbin. In fact, there's an excellent book on BPR called Re-Engineering the Corporation, which in fact laid the foundation of this movement. In Re-Engineering the Corporation, there's a chapter called IT the Enabler, because the entire BPR movement is based on information technology. It's not that information is just sort of peripheral to the BPR movement. It's central to the BPR movement. So BPR said, using computers and communications throughout the whole process, don't just try to improve it slightly or incrementally. Throughout the whole process, build a new process using computers and communications, and you will improve efficiency enormously to such an extent that you will kill the competition. And those who don't follow this path will be thrown out of business. I'll give you 3-4 examples. Take ATMs in banks. Before ATMs, what was the process of withdrawing or depositing cash? You used to go to the bank, then take a token, and then the bell used to ring, ting ting, and then you used to go to the window, and the teller clerk used to dispense, so maybe, withdraw, give you cash, right? With ATMs, this process that I described just now was not improved 5-10%. It was discarded, it was thrown completely. But the result was the teller clerks were jobless. I'll come to this theme, I'll revisit this theme towards the end. The teller clerks were jobless. They had to unlearn and learn, and that's the mantra in tomorrow's survival mantra. I'll talk about that. They had to unlearn and learn. They had to forget about what they had learned and learn new techniques or technologies or new ways of doing things if they had to survive. Take another example. Take animation. How does the animation work? If you want to show the cat running from one end of the wall to the other end of the wall, there was, in fact, Walt Disney had employed hundreds of artists in his California garage, So one artist used to draw a picture of a cat at one end of the wall, then another picture with cat having moved a little bit, then third picture having moved still a little bit, and so on and so forth, until the last picture which showed the cat having moved to the end of the wall. Then you shoot those pictures, put them on a film, and show that film at a particular rate, which is more than 10 per second, normally 24 per second or whatever. Why? Because of the property of the retina. Any picture that falls on your retina is retained for 1/10 of a second. So before the first one fades away, if the second one falls on the retina, before the second one fades away, if the third one falls on the retina, and so on and so forth, it gives you an impression that the cat has actually moved from one end of the other. So it cheats your eye. And that's all you saw Tom and Jerry films. But imagine that for 1 second, 10 pictures. Of course, they had many tricks to reduce the work, tracing papers and stuff like that. But even then, the work was tremendous, because for 1 second you had to draw minimum 10 pictures, if not 24, at least 10 pictures, which means 1 minute is 600 pictures. For 1 hour, 3600 pictures. For 1 hour, is that right? 1 second, 10 pictures. So 1 minute is 600 pictures. and 36,000 pictures. 36,000 pictures for 1 hour, and you just sit on your couch and then watch Tom and Jerry film for 1 hour. The artist was toiling, right? Then in 1980s came a software. The name was In-Betweening. 80s, mid 80s. And it said, give me a picture of the cat at one end of the wall, give me a picture of the cat at the other end of the wall. That is software using graphics and geometry, rotation and stuff like that, you may have learned. I will draw the pictures of the cat in between. I'll put them on a reel or disc, that is, and then I'll show it to you at whatever speed you choose to see. That is, on the terminal will ask you what speed, and you can choose as a parameter. You can say 5, 10, 30, whatever. And at that speed, it will show you that those pictures. So you can just give two extremes, and it will build all the pictures, put them on a disk, and show you at whatever speed you choose to see. And all the artists were jobless. Literally, I mean, please understand. And this process is hastening up, it's speeding up so enormously, and that's the theme I'm going to sort of return to towards the end. So they had to find something new. Of course, after this, the 3D animation came, and now today, in a toothpaste also on a table, you can show the toothpaste actually just flying and then sitting on somebody's hand and so on. If that happens, Newton would rotate in his grave, I mean, what is this happening to gravity and so on. But with animation, you can do anything, Of course, if there is a rule tomorrow, the animation today is used in almost all advertisements, all films, all movies. American films, of course, half the films are animation only. And there are many films that are built only on animation, I'm sure you know that. If tomorrow there's a rule that you cannot use animation in films, the first one to commit suicide will be Rajnikant. He cannot survive. I can tell you, it's impossible for Rajnikant to survive without animation. But the point I'm trying to make is that, again, the process was not improved or changed incrementally. It was discarded, and entirely new process was brought in place. Take simple thing like typing. Earlier there was a typewriter, and when one line was finished, they used to bring the line to the beginning and then again start. It was a change to be made. There were several copies, carbon copies in the eraser and stuff like that. With word processor, things change. With DTP, they changed enormously. So the entire printing industry, publishing industry, books industry completely changed. It's not just incrementally changed. See, the electronic typewriter was an incremental change. But with word processor and DTP, it was revolutionary change, because then you didn't need paper at all and stuff like that. So then you could talk about digital libraries, and so the way you live, the way you sort of transact, it changed in a revolutionary fashion, not in an incremental fashion. So unless a typist learned word processing, which was higher level than just sort of finding the keys and stuff like that, word processing has its own rules. And DTP, which is still higher level, page making and stuff, unless you learned those tricks, you couldn't find a job. Take CAD/CAM. Earlier, people used to have, in IIT, we used to have a T-square, and we used to draw machine drawing. You must have done some machine drawing. In our case, we used to take a T-square and do the machine. I mean, we didn't do it. Somebody had done it 10 years back, and we used to do GT, glass topo. That's another story. But somebody in the history had to do it, right? But that is also changed completely. With DTP, with CAD/CAM, you not only can draw a machine part, but you can also do finite element analysis and stuff like that. See, you must understand, I've been to Boeing's factory and several other General Electric's engineering facilities. It's impossible. In fact, I wonder how Ford built his 1912 car. Impossible today for any car or any aeroplane, impossible, or any machine or anything, even small electronics, without CAD/CAM. Because there are so many, each one there's a bill of material. When there are bills of materials, there are levels. I don't know if you are aware of what is bill of material. The finished product consists of several semi-finished products and sub-assemblies. That consists of several sub-assemblies and components and so on. So these are levels, and those levels are like 29 and 35 and so on. At each level, there are dozens of component sub-assemblies. So there are hundreds of parts, components of assembly. Each one you have to make a decision of make or buy. Make inside or maybe buy from outside. And if there is a buy, there are several vendors or suppliers, each one coming to your door, knocking on your doors every week, saying, now I have this design, now I'm using this metal, now I'm nano particle, whatever. So you will keep track of all that, because in your next version, you may assemble different things from different vendors or maybe buy them depending upon costing and stuff like that. So these are, to do this and to keep track of this and the compatibility and stuff like that, and the finite element analysis and things like that, it's impossible to continue doing manually considering the complexities of manufacturing processes today. So if you don't use CAD-CAM, you are finished today. So those companies who use CAD-CAM, and there are other versions of course, in CAD-CAM is just elementary, there are many more advanced versions, you will be thrown out of competition. So in 1980s, it's not that people started trusting computers because of multimedia, GUIs and colors, and costs became low, and they became networked with larger computers and so on. But they invaded just about every area, and not just invaded, they told the businesses that I will not beg for work any longer. Please let me design some systems. But now, you use me, if you don't use me, you will be thrown out of business. And that message was picked up by Americans firstly. So Americans are always first in catching these signals. Europeans follow, and then Japan follows in the end, is the last. India never catches, that's another story. But Americans caught the message very clearly, very loudly. And therefore in the 80s, they started developing various application systems, enormous amount of application systems in 1980s. Up to 1970s, there were mini computers, there were batch processing, there were traditional normal purchasing, inventory, payroll, financial accounting and so on. But in 1980s upwards, in all areas, American companies started developing computer applications because they realized that if they didn't, they would not survive. And that gave rise to a tremendous amount of demand for programmers. You must know why all this happened. It's very interesting. There was a tremendous demand for American programmers. But American programmers used to cost them per hour around $80 to $100 those days. I was in Patni then. Narayan Murthy had left Patni and started Infosys. I sat in the same chair and ran Patni for 11 years. Infosys was smaller than us. When we were at Patni at 40 people, Infosys was 20 people. We used to all meet, Nandan and Murthy and all that. And we used to think that if $80 to $100 per hour is the rate for American programmers, and the need is very obvious, then if we send somebody from India to America, including the airfare, including the hotel charges there, including the salary or some money that we will pay for the parents to survive and so on, including all that, maybe, and including our profit, we can charge them $40, $50. Considering the cost, the prices then, maybe $40, $50 an hour. So a lot of saving, 80 and 50, there's a lot of difference. And we thought that if we put this proposal to the American customers, they would just come running and hug us and then embrace us and maybe invite us, and they'll ask for hundreds of programmers and so on. So we used to go and several seminars in New York and several places. I still remember in New York calling when it was snowing outside, cold calling using yellow pages to American prospects. I can't call them customers. And for weeks and months, there was no response. Our thinking was that they would welcome us with open arms because the price differential, cost arbitrage was very high. We thought they'll ask for a number of programmers from India. But that didn't happen for weeks and months. And then we realized the reason was their concept of Indian culture. Thanks to CNN and ABC and CBS and various channels, their idea of India is full of serpents, elephants and magicians. So, in fact, when I gave my first presentation in New York, my first slide was India is full of serpents, elephants and magicians. All right, but we also have good programmers. And this guy used to look at me with complete disbelief. How can you have programmers? Have you seen a computer ever in your life? So like Shashi Kapoor says in Diwar, mere paas maa hai. So, So I used to say, we have IITs, I thought he then get up and then very impressed. But he says, what is this IIT? What is the long form of IIT? And that was the end of the story. Of course, 25 years later, I was in America, there was a CBS 60 program, and the heads of MITs and Carnegie Mellons and Stanfords had assembled for that program. And they said, literally bowing their heads, that IIT is one of the best universities in the world. And that's because what happened in the next 25 years. But it is not only IITs, it's institutes like yours, and there are several other institutes which played a very significant and very major role in the years that followed. And I'll probably tell you what happened. I remember after entreating, after requesting, after begging for weeks and so on, because when I used to make a call, it used to land on the table of the secretary. And she used to say, send your brochure. Send your brochure means, case gone, Because the brochure will just lie on the table of the secretary for a few weeks or months, and then it will go to the manager and so on. Americans don't give meetings very easily, unlike Japanese, who give meetings all the time, but business never results. But, so it was very hard to even get a meeting. Phone calls used to land at the secretary's desk. Finally, after a lot of efforts and so on, one prospect, and then who became customer, said, okay, I'll take 2 of your people, but if they don't work well, I'll send them back within 15 days. So I took the risk. And I said, this is worth doing. And I selected 2 of my best people, MTech Computer Science, really the brightest in my company, coached them and trained them. Because it's not only sort of training in terms of computer programming, but in those days, at least, even now it must be necessary, but in those days, I had to train them in terms of how to behave, Left hand side driving, right hand side driving, and then speaking English, shaking hands. When you shake hands or greet somebody, it has to be firm, And you have to look into the eyes of a person. And Americans, when they talk, or even Europeans, they look in your eyes and speak. That is a mark of confidence. Indians don't look, Indians start looking somewhere. The grip has to be very firm. You start looking into the eyes. In America, how you speak is very important than what you speak. Even if you speak absolute rubbish or nonsense, it's absolutely perfect so long as you speak very confidently. That's how they choose their presidents. That's how they choose their presidents anyway. The point is, it's extremely important to, in fact, in those days, I remember the girls, I'm talking about 80s. How can I look into the eyes of a foreigner? Para Purush and so on. We have to coach them and tell them that if you don't do this, show your diffidence and so on. Now I'm told things have changed so much that when Indian software and girl goes and shakes hands with an American starts looking the other way. So culture has changed quite a bit, I guess. But we had to struggle a lot. Finally, 2 people went. I remember when they took a flight, I never have reached anybody or seen somebody off at the airport. I've sent thousands of people overseas up to now. I've never seen somebody off at the airport, excepting the first 2 people. In those days, the 10, 20 relatives used to come with garlands and so on, all kinds of things. But these 2 people, I literally kept manuals, like Oracle and so on, very thick manuals, which they had not heard of. But I came to know what the product was only a few hours, maybe 1 or 2 days earlier. I had procured the manual. Those manuals I gave them, and said, read in the flight, and from Monday you have to work on this. Imagine. They are not worked on this product. But they were so bright. These people read, first day or 2 they probably struggled, but then the way they worked was absolutely miraculous. And I was sort of holding my breath for, all the days. I didn't know what would happen in 15 days' time. But exactly 5th day the customer called me and said, you guys are magic, send me 3 more, and then send me 5 more, and send me 7 more, and so on and so forth. And that same experience was experienced by TCS, Infosys, and so. It's not that I was the first. These companies had started in similar fashion, maybe TCS even earlier. But And then in 1980s, 100,000 people, software engineers went to America. 100,000. Now that created enormous amount of, that bridged the credibility gap. Americans knew what Indian software professionals are. The capability, the credibility increased, the do's and don'ts, how what to expect from them and so on. There are still communication problems and English problems and so on and so forth. When I still remember, in fact I used to coach them, speak in English, even if you speak in Marathi, here you speak in English. But then they were so enthusiastic. I remember I had gone to Chicago once and one couple called me for dinner. Every month I had to go and meet my customers and my employees, So I had gone to the Chicago, and then that couple said, why don't you have dinner with us? So I went to have dinner with them, and then they wanted to show that they speak English, while in America. So that while you have dinner, you normally say, eat properly, don't feel shy. In Marathi we say, lazu naka. So I was having dinner, and then this couple came hurriedly and said, Mr. Godbole, eat shamelessly. So I was extremely impressed because I didn't know how they could realize, how could understand my nature so quickly, But they're speaking, so there are issues about English and culture and a few other things, but Americans by and large realize the kind of potential, the kind of capabilities that Indian software talent has. Then 1990s, software links, internet and satellite links were established. Jack Welch played a major role. I won't go into the history of that. And then because of the satellite link, but it was not a very easy task, by the way. It is one thing to send 5 people and manage it. For American person to have 5 people come from India and manage a project under my nose, his or her nose, is very different than having a project shipped out thousands of miles away. It's very hard because the project is to be finished in 6 months' time, and after 5 months and 3 weeks, if an Indian company throws the hands up and says, sorry, I have not finished, I'll probably take 3 more months, please don't pay me your last installment, maybe pay me when I finish. American customers just go wild because it's not just the payment, the withholding of the payment that he or she is concerned about, the consequent, the consequences of the delayed project to his or her customers in turn are enormous. So I think it took a while for them to send pilot projects and many visits here, there, etc. So this is the longest story. But satellite links bridge the gap because when you depress the key here, that same character is sitting on the disk in New York and is visible on the screen there and so on and so forth. So basically, if I say by this Friday I'll finish 5 programs, I can't bluff too much because on Friday evening, Friday morning in New York, which is EST, Eastern Standard Time, and he or she can check whether the 5 programs have been finished or not. So you couldn't bluff too much. So the credibility was built, and then there were several visits, etc. And then offshore started, and then dozens of centers in Pune, Chennai, first Mumbai, and then because of the costs and prices of property prices, they spread all over India. And then we had Chennai, and then Pune, and then we had Bangalore, and Delhi, and so on and so forth. That was 1990s. Internet, satellite links, and offshore centers. 2000 onwards, mobile computing started, and it had different direction. Now, I'll talk about what's likely to happen in future. Not about computing, but in general for 7, 8 minutes, and then I'll talk about what should we do to succeed in tomorrow's world. And I think it's very important. The last portion is very important for all of you, all of us in fact. What will be the future look like? There are many conjectures, there are many predictions, and it's very hard to sort of predict exactly, but as I've said, the rate of growth is so enormous that it's very hard to predict what's likely to happen. Nandan Nilekan has given a very good lecture about the future of financial and services industry. All of you should listen to it on YouTube. I used to talk about this 15 years ago, and Nandan has talked about this, and I thought it would probably take 15 years hence, but he's saying it will happen in the next 5 years. So let me just tell you what's likely to happen. And that's no more mystery any longer because of some things that have happened. I'll mention that. In tomorrow's world, there will be no notes, no coins, no checkbook, no credit card, no debit card, nothing at all. Because all money will be only on a mobile. mainframe, mini, micro, desktop, laptop, palm top, mobile itself will be, or even wrist top now. Wrist top, the watches have mobile computing, as you know. But whatever size, etc. But your mobile computer will have zeros and ones, your bank balance. When you work, if at all you do, when you work, then your salary will be deposited electronically in zeros and ones in your account. You go to a shop and look at a shirt and it says the price is 800 rupees and you key in the account number, key in 800, so your account number, your balance will be reduced, which is debited, and the shopkeepers will be increased, that is credited. There are of course issues about virus and security, which of course Atul will talk about. But because of the security issues, nobody has stopped transactions. Nobody has said, oh, there could be attacks, and therefore let's not do ATMs, let's not do e-banking, let's not do this. Nothing has happened. There are several, like 64-bit DES came into existence, it was broken, then 128 RSA came into existence, that is now broken, so a new thing will come. So this chore sipai will continue, but I don't think the actual business will stop because of that. So if that happens, then all these will go away. I used to talk about that, and again people used to look at me with great surprise. Now with Paytm, people can actually see that it is almost coming, right? Whether how long it will take for notes and other things to vanish is another matter, but I think you can see it coming. The other things are more revolutionary and frightening, but I think they will happen, in my opinion. When will they happen? Whether 10 years, 50 years? I don't know, but in this century they'll definitely happen. Especially for a young crowd, they'll happen much sooner than what we think. All offices in the world will become museums. Whether it is banks or insurance, or any company, you see tall buildings and people going to the offices, all that will become museums because there will be no need to go to the office to work. When I go to the office, what do? I work, or at least I pretend that I do. I work. I call my secretary and say, call 4 managers, north, south, east, west, to my conference room. So she calls all of them. Then there's a PPT, there's a projector, there's a graph, there's a bar chart which shows the sales in north, east, etc. Then sales in south have not reached up to the mark, so I take him to task and ask him why the sales have not increased. And he gives me reasons as to, no, I was not allowed to hire one more salesman, or I was not allowed to give one more advertisement, XYZ. And there's a discussion which follows. Decisions are taken. All that can be taken when all 4 salesmen and I am, who is the boss, sitting in our respective homes, and there's a screen and there's a video camera. And on the screen at the center, I am shown because I am the boss, and 4 windows, there are 4 managers who are shown. And we can discuss, we can talk, we can fight, and we can take decisions. The way in news today, when I used to talk about this 15 years back, people used to think of, we were very surprised. Today in news, this happens every minute. Somebody from Calcutta, somebody from London, somebody from Mumbai, all of them talking. In some channels there are 12 people, of course. But normally 4 or 5 people, and they fight again, who's more corrupt, etc. But I think more importantly, they all can speak from different places. So why can this not happen? I have several books on death of distance. That's very likely to happen. The entire the teleworking is increasing in Europe and America enormously, by the way, tremendously over the past decade. You don't need to travel, so the offices will become completely museums. Even factories with robots and so on can be run by very few people. I know a few factories in Holland, they are run by 2 people. Some factories are run by 4 people. Sometimes the factory is also remotely operated. I know a company where in New York, he or she presses a button and the valve of the evaporator in Spain is opened or closed, and the temperature of steam and all that changes. So it is possible to even control. In Australia, there was a remote surgery. I don't know if you are aware of this. A surgeon sitting in Melbourne using his, the patient's image on the screen performed an operation in Sydney, the festival of Sydney, there all the instruments were, the knives, etc. were kept there, and on the screen he just drew a line and the knife actually cut his stomach or something. I won't still go for that kind of operation. I think it's rather risky, but it was performed quite well because accuracy in the robotic surgery was very high. So basically, the death of distance is very, very important. Same thing is true about colleges and schools. In our schools, maybe there are 50 children or 100 children, so if they were to be depicted on the screen, each box will be only a pixel or a dot. That may not work, but if there are 12, 13, 20, 30 students, then the same logic can work. The teachers at the center and the students in each box. Teachers teaching. A teacher asks a question, one student raises hands, all the other students are looking at that student sitting in their homes, respective homes. Sitting in their respective homes, they know that this guy has raised a hand. This guy gives an answer which is obviously wrong. Teacher frowns, all that others also can see. In fact, in our school, there was one teacher who used to throw a duster, If the answer was wrong, she used to throw a duster. That is a little difficult in internet era. But I am told there is a research going on. This could be a small panel, and if somebody gives a wrong answer, she'll just press a button and there will be a small shock from behind for that. So all kinds of research can go on in internet era. But the point I am trying to make is all the experiments can be simulated. All the experiments can be simulated. In our college, there was a chemistry demonstrator who used to love the students, who used to be very good, She was very good. She behaved well with students. She was good in chemistry, but her English was very poor. So when we started, we used to come a little before she came, and we used to start pouring acid from burette, pipette, and so on. So she used to come and she used to see, she would look at students who started using the burette, pipette, and acid, but she used to care for us. And she wanted to tell us, do it properly, do it slowly, otherwise you'll burn your fingers, She wanted to tell us. But she sort of couldn't express it. She was, So she came, her English was very poor, so she came and she said, boys. Don't pour the acid. Pour the acid. So everybody passed in chemistry and failed in English. So it took a while for us to debug that problem. But the point I want to make is every experiment can be simulated. And whether physics, chemistry or whatever. Today surgery can be shown on the computer, live surgery and so on. I mean, enormous amount of things could be done in computers. If you see Khan Academy programs, you realize what can be done on education. It's superb, I mean, all of you should see Khan Academy programs. Anyway, the point is that it's going to change the entire landscape. The way we work is going to change tremendously. There will be, of course, 400, 800 story buildings. In fact, there was a plan in Houston to build such a large building. It was actually put off because of 9/11. Japan, there was a plan of actually building a city under the sea. A Taisei corporation wanted to do it. All these things are likely. In fact, if you have 400 miles per hour train, you will have Bombay-Pune distance in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and so on and so forth. And these are not impossible things. Today Meghalaya train, which exists, actually has those kinds of speeds. Then there's biotechnology, and there's nanotechnology, and there are hundreds of things that I can sort of talk about. Biotechnology, I can just give you some insights. We have around 100,000 genes, which are important. And when we live, there's a genetic sequence which sort of plays out. Only certain things happen at a certain age. The child starts crawling only at a certain age. The child starts talking at a certain age, babbling, which is talking at a certain age. Child starts walking at a certain age. Then at the other end, you have wrinkles at a certain age. The hair turns grey at a certain age, and so on and so forth. Why does this happen? Because as if there's a genetic program, like a computer program, which is being executed only at a certain stage, things happen in the way they do. Now, understanding this genetic sequence was a challenge, and that was taken up by a project called Human Genome Project, which was supposed to end in 2003. Hundreds of scientists had worked in this project. Headquarters at Washington had been there, and that was a very, very ambitious project. But that got over in 2000, not 2003, 3 years earlier than scheduled. Bill Clinton came on the television and actually said, congratulated the team amongst claps and so on, thunderous claps, because it was a victory. And it was sort of a great event. The reason why it finished off, it was completed in 2000 rather than 2003 was because it used computer simulation. Again, information technology played a major role. There are 3 T's, as Abdul Kalam has said, there are 3 T's which will dominate the next century. IT, BT and NT, information technology, biotechnology and nanotechnology. But all these again will be internally driven by information technology. And this is one example. Now, if you understand how the genes work and the genetic sequence works, we have not understood it completely by this. There are tremendous complications in this, enormous. So don't misunderstand that we have understood it, mastered it completely. But if we do, maybe in 20 years hence, 40 years hence, then we can change some of the genetic program. The way we change Java program, a C++ program, we can change some program so that there will be never wrinkles on our face, whatever our age is. Maybe our hair will never turn grey. I don't know what will happen in the cosmetic industry then, that's another story. But what will happen if and there are projections of the lifespan of people. How long can they live? Some people can say 100 years, 120 years will reach only a few decades. But there are projections by some people, some say 200 years, 300 years. There's one scientist who has said, after a century or two, humans will start living for 1400 years. That is, I think, unimaginable. 1400 is probably too much, but a few hundred years is certainly imaginable after a few decades or maybe century. Now, how will you live? Suppose you live for 200 years. What will you do? Maybe some 70, 80 years you live, then take a tablet, maybe go to sleep. Maybe another 10, 20 years you get up again, see new girlfriends, boyfriends, new movies, new restaurants, some food, enjoy. And another 20, 30 years again take a tablet, drop dead. I don't know what life will be then. But it's interesting because, similarly nanotechnologies, there are enormous possibilities, like nano robots will be small robots which will flow through your blood and which will be a pathological laboratory, running real-time pathological laboratory. So every minute, every second, it will check your BP, stool, blood, urine, all that, heart rate. And if there is a problem, it will give you a warning. If there is a small problem, if there is a bigger problem, it will actually call your doctor. If there is still bigger problem, call the hospital and ambulance at once. This is not, there are actual experiments going on in California. I know scientists working on several models by them. Artificial intelligence and robots and so on. But the theme is, what is it that I'm talking about? Things will change tremendously fast in your lifetime. That's why I started with the history of the universe. Enormously fast. And then you won't even sort of realize the change until it has caught up with you and shake you up. You have to unlearn and learn extremely fast. I'll come to that last portion of 7-8 minutes when I end. In fact, one sociologist has said that you will have to change your job 6 times in your career. And change your job means the way you do things, like ATM, and I gave 4 or 5 examples. You have to unlearn and learn, or maybe do your job differently, or change and learn new techniques. 6 times. Changing your job doesn't mean Wipro to Infosys, or TCS to whatever. When I was talking to a call center guy, he said, what is this? I changed my job 6 times in a year. He said, that is not what is meant by changing the job. Changing the job means changing the way you do things because of the advancement of the technology. Like surgery, robotic surgery will change the picture completely in tomorrow's world. So, in all walks of life, architecture for that matter, earlier, now today, you can have an inner view of a building and all kinds of things. So, basically, the way you do things will change enormously, at least 6 times, and that's going to put a lot of stress psychological on people. So what should you do in tomorrow's world? Just to give you some examples, some statistics, so you'll realize this. You realize what kind of future you are facing. So I don't want to frighten you, but I think Boston Consulting Group, whatever has said, one group has said, ENY or Boston Consulting, KPMG, I don't remember, that in the next 25 years, 68% of the jobs that we do today will become obsolete. I don't know what people will do then. There are, of course, several such frightening books that came about. 1997, there's a book by Jeremy Rifkin called End of Work, which I had read page cover to cover. And it was very frightening. The book, the title itself was End of Work. Similarly, there's another book called The Future of Robots and so on, which I'm currently reading, which predicts very similar things, that in tomorrow's world, most of the work, not only in assembly line workers, but also in service sector, which are repeatable or which can be put in some kind of algorithm, will be taken up by robots. Including even sort of people who do market analysis and share price analysis and portfolio, because ultimately there are P ratios and so there are algorithms. So you look at last year performance, this year performance, look at competition, look at market, look at several parameters. The way a market analyst will analyze and maybe predict or maybe suggest investments, right? If all that data can be fed a computer using similar algorithms, or even better, because computer can learn from past experiences like expert systems do in artificial intelligence, then it can do the same thing. And therefore, even in services sector, quite a few white collar jobs are likely to just vanish. I'm not talking about tomorrow, but 10, 20, 30 years, certainly, maybe 40 years, almost certainly, it's going to be complete overall. I mean, it's going to be enormously different picture. So what should we do to succeed in tomorrow's world? There are 3-4 things that I want to sort of discuss. Purchasing and inventory and payroll and even ERP for that matter. How long can you continue doing? Next 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? I'm sure that many of you will be informatics, maybe nanotechnology, maybe going to Mars, maybe different kind of games and entertainment. Maybe unfortunately, research